Tonight, an additional 3 COVID-19 related deaths and 97 new cases were recorded across Jamaica in the last 24 hours. Prime Minister Andrew Holness today announced changes to the current curfew hours for the Heroes Weekend.
Island-wide curfew time will remain at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. day to day until 5 a.m. on October 18, 2020.
The Parliamentary caucus of the opposition People's National Party is calling for the immediate reinstatement of the opposition's chairmanship of all sessional committees of the House of Representatives.
It is in that context that I believe it is a retrograde step for Jamaica's democracy, for the convention that has been followed by both sides since 2007, that the opposition names the chairman of the sessional committees, has been abandoned by the current government.
And the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, has closed building sites in the corporate area due to building breaches.
Within the past 3 weeks alone, we have issued approximately 6 stop work notice for various breaches as it regards to the conditions of approval and the building approval itself.
An additional 3 COVID-19 related deaths and 97 new cases were recorded across Jamaica in the last 24 hours. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the deceased are a 60-year-old female from St. Elizabeth, a 99-year-old female from St. Catherine, and an 86-year-old male from Kingston and St. Andrew. 2 other deaths are under investigation. The latest deaths bring the death toll from the coronavirus in Jamaica to 123. The 97 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases bring the total number of cases on record for the island to 7,109. Of the newly confirmed cases, 67 are females and 29 are males, while the sex classification of 1 case is awaiting confirmation. Ages among the new cases range from 13 to 88 years. The cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew 32, St. James 22, St. Catherine 14, St. Mary 7, St. Anne 6, St. Elizabeth 4, Clarendon 3, Hanover 3, Trelawney 2, Westmoreland 2, St. Thomas 1, and Portland 1. There are 39 moderately ill patients and 12 critically ill patients among the 4,216 active cases now under observation in Jamaica, while recoveries increased by 39, bringing total recoveries to 2,674. Prime Minister Andrew Holness today announced changes to the current curfew hours for the Heroes Weekend. While speaking in Parliament today, the Prime Minister said it is part of measures to help contain the spread of COVID-19.
We will be extending the current measures until the end of the month. So that means that the present gathering order of 15 that will remain until the end of the month. In terms of the curfew, the island-wide curfew time will remain at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. day to day until 5 a.m. on October 18, 2020. We have considered where we are in the progression of the pandemic in the country, and we have taken a decision to discourage parties and gatherings which are normally held during the Heroes Weekend. Therefore, the curfew hours during the Heroes Weekend will be from 3 p.m. Sunday, October 18, 2020, ending 8 a.m. Monday, October 19, 2020. The curfew will resume Monday, October 19, 2020 at 3 p.m. and will end at 5 a.m. on Tuesday, October 20, 2020. Thereafter, as we have done before, the curfew will move to 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. the following day, each day ending 5 a.m. Sunday, November 1, 2020.
Prime Minister Holness also listed 2 communities under special curfew hours.
To undertake necessary productive activities such as going to work, taking public transportation, carrying out their essential activities of daily living such as shopping, visiting the doctor, and carrying on their business activities. Details of the measures are as follows. 1. In these defined areas, the curfew will start 6 p.m. today, October 6, 2020, to 5 a.m. the following day, each day ending at 5 a.m. on October 20, 2020. During curfew hours, only essential workers with identification will be allowed to enter and exit the defined areas. The gathering limit will be no more than 6 persons in any public place from October 7th to October 19th. All the other existing restrictions, such as mask wearing and physical distancing, will be strictly enforced. Madam Speaker, these actions will be underpinned by increasing public education and awareness through extensive community engagement. The communities in which these measures are being implemented are Whitfield Town in Kingston and Waterford in St. Catherine. In Whitfield Town, we have seen as many as 21 cases active. And in Waterford, we have seen as many as 24 cases active and 3 deaths so far. Madam Speaker, given that they are now in community transmission phase, we have to assume that everyone that we come into contact with is.
The Parliamentary Caucus of the Opposition People's National Party, PNP, is reiterating its call for the immediate reinstatement of the opposition's chairmanship of all sessional committees of the House of Representatives. They made the call while addressing issues that will be encountered by students during this new school term. Ahead of the regular meeting of the House earlier today, Leader of Opposition Business Philip Paulwell said the opposition is prepared to have discussions and agreements with the government on several issues to make the committees more useful, including a schedule of meetings for all committees, staffing, and venues.
We want to say that we recognize that the government has a significant majority and they can do pretty much what they want because it's over 2/3. But we as guardian of the Constitution, of the role that we play as oversight, we intend to resist this. But we are prepared to have discussions, we are prepared to meet, as has been some of the recommendations from civil society, to meet with the government to see how we can do a comprehensive review of this matter and other matters relating to the standing orders to ensure that we can resume the role of opposition chairing these committees. We're prepared to look at the issue of the role of the government in terms of joint or deputy chairman of these committees, and also to decide on a specific schedule by which these committees would meet to ensure that not only the PAC and the PAAC are meeting, but all of these sessional committees. We again call upon the government for support in terms of space and secretarial staffing.
Golding said that the opposition should still be allowed to chair the oversight committees as an effort to preserve our democracy.
Coming out of the last election, the governing party has what I would call a supermajority in Parliament. They have more than 2/3 of the seats. And that enables them to pass legislation, even constitutional amendments, in the lower house. It is in that context that I believe it is a retrograde step for Jamaica's democracy, for the convention that has been followed by both sides since 2007, that the opposition names the chairman of the sessional committees, has been abandoned by the current government. As has been said, attempts were made in the last government for them to do so. Those were resisted successfully. However, perhaps emboldened by their election win, they have determined that they are pushing through with it. And despite being asked in Parliament last week, Tuesday, not to do so, the Prime Minister insisted, nevertheless, that they were going to proceed with this. And the reasons given are, frankly, spurious. It is very important that the opposition continue to chair them so that the government can be held accountable for the actions of the executive. It is naive and disingenuous to assume that a committee chaired by the government side is going to hold the government to account. We all know the nature of our politics. That will not happen. So I'm very pleased that civil society organizations have come on board and have issued press releases supporting the call for the continuation of the convention established in 2007.
Meanwhile, opposition spokesman on Science, Technology and Information, Julian Robinson, while speaking at today's PNP press conference, says even if the government delivers all the technology it has, it will only impact 70 to 75% of students.
But the vast majority of Jamaican students parents simply cannot afford devices or stable internet access at home. We made recommendations from months ago, and I am really disappointed that the recommendations that we made have not been acted upon. The first thing we said is that the government should use taxation policy to ease the burden on parents by making these devices cheaper, by lifting the GCT and other applicable duties. The reason we said that is, even with the best will in the world, if the government delivers all the technology it has, it can't impact more than 70 to 75,000 students. So you're going to have a large cross-section, as is now acknowledged by the minister, who will not be able to access education. Removing GCT at minimum would ease the burden by at least 15% and maybe more on the cost of the tablets. And the reality is that the tablets provide the cheapest source of access for students. Laptops are ideal and probably better, but they are a lot more expensive. The 36,000 tablets that the government projects for non-PASS students, they're going to have a challenge getting the devices. Why? Because there's a worldwide shortage of laptops and computer devices, because every country in the world is facing the same problem we are. So even the projection of the 36,000 tablets is not likely to happen before the end of this year.
In the meantime, opposition spokesperson on Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Lisa Hanna, in her remarks outlined some recommendations that the government can adopt to help students at this time.
Areas. The United Nations has a very, very interesting approach to use satellite technology for low Earth stations to provide voice and data. And they do it in countries that are much bigger than Jamaica. We have schools in the rural areas, community centers, public libraries, hotspots. And when I looked at the cost as a member of parliament to provide private Wi-Fi, it's about $2,000 to provide the hardware for this private Wi-Fi, and then $500 to maintain the Wi-Fi over the course of the month. Now, residents can't afford that. I have mothers in my constituency who have not been working in the hotel sector since March. They don't have the money. Right now, they're choosing between buying a phone card to provide the data on their phone versus food. This is where we find ourselves. And the anger that I feel as a member of parliament is because millions of dollars were spent on an election. But then you rush into a school year, and now where is the money coming from? Where's the money coming from? And even to procure the tablets, the schools are telling us that the government is asking them to procure the tablets. It is going to take forever for them to even do it, and they don't have the budgets to do it. We find ourselves in a real problem, and I really wish the government would get off of its PR campaigning for opportunities to take pictures just to show that they're actually doing something that is peripheral and really try and solve this issue for people's lives.
In other news, the Electoral Office of Jamaica EOJ has advised that it is making arrangements for Election Day workers, EDWS, and suppliers that were involved in the September 3 general election to be paid this month, following increased queries regarding payment. In a statement released today, the EOJ said it has commenced processing payments for well over 60,000 payees, which includes presiding officers, poll clerks, supervisors, polling station, security assistants, indoor agents, property managers, haulage contractors, and handymen. The EOJ further stated that this number also includes 7,000 new category of workers, which include sanitation clerks and cleaner attendants, who were employed to execute the protocols developed to mitigate against the spread of COVID-19. Director of Elections Glasspool Brown, in addressing the concerns, stated that, quote, "The EOJ is grateful that so many Jamaicans came on board to make the general election a success. We appreciate the patience of the EDWS and can assure them that we are working assiduously in getting payment to them by the 2nd to 3rd week of October," end quote. The EOJ said all Election Day workers will receive payments via remittance services and will be notified by text message of when they can collect their monies. In other news, schools reopened yesterday to mixed reactions from teachers and parents on the smoothness of the process. More on this story with Colleen Mee.
As the official start of the new school year commenced yesterday, parents and teachers expressed concerns over the challenges with some of the software used to facilitate the virtual education process. Principal of the Tollgate Primary in Clarendon, Carl Brown Clark, said the turnout for classes via Google Classroom has been very low.
Of our nearly 350 students, we have just up to my check last night, we had 130 students logged into Google Classroom. That means we are way below 50% at that point. And so I'll be making a check after this to see if we are anywhere near 50%. This morning we started with a Zoom devotion. We got up to 100 students and parents on the Zoom devotion, and we had a psychosocial session with the guidance counselor. We also had a teacher going through a virtual orientation for the students, where actually use a computer screen to show how to navigate this Google Classroom.
Principal Brown Clark explained that some of the students already missed more than 6 months of classes and that she is worried dozens of students could continue to miss lessons over the coming weeks.
We have students, especially infants, grades 1, 2, 3, who would need their parents to actually help them. So we went through a session with the parents. But we know that one session is not enough. And so we have been trying. The teachers have to individually call many of the students. Eventually, they got to some, but there are still a few we have not yet connected with at all in this virtual space. And so I've asked the guidance counselor to go to physically find them such that we can find a way to help them. I tell you, I have about 180 on the list for learning kits. That means they don't have the device, they don't have connectivity, or both. But aside from those, there are some who we don't yet know what it is that they have or don't have, because there's no connection. We call the numbers we have and we don't get them. So those are the ones we're trying to find.
Our news team also visited the nearby Osborne Store Primary and Infant School, and the concerns there were similar. Principal of the institution, Evelyn Johnson Henry, explained that dozens of students have not been heard from or seen in months and the school cannot reach them.
First of all, we're at school here now and we're having internet challenges. We are really communicating with teachers, and from what I'm hearing from the teachers, they have the challenges of meeting the students or getting to the students. Some, they can't reach any at all. They are trying to get some of them, they get them over WhatsApp, through WhatsApp, some of them via Zoom and the Google platform. But the Google platform so far, few of them so far that they can reach are actually reached. You find also that some of the students, they haven't gotten an email address from MOE schools, and so they are unable to get to the platform. Teachers are also unable to get onto the platform, the Google Classroom that is, because they need to get their addresses also.
In speaking with our news team, parents expressed difficulties in getting the resources needed to help their children do online classes.
The online class is kind of difficult for me because I am a parent. Well, I'm not working at the moment now, but it is kind of difficult for me because I don't have any device for 2 children at home. Yes, and I have a daughter who is 8. She's kind of a little bit difficult to teach at home, but by the grace of God, I will try my best.
Some parents out of a job like me, I saw that they're increasing the tablet and the laptop, and I think they should decrease it because let it more affordable for the parents to buy them to help their child online. I think it should be more affordable because many parents do not have it to buy it for their child, and the price is going sky high and most of the parents are complaining.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I am Kayleen May.
The National Parenting Support Commission, an agency of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, is calling for parents to ensure their children adhere to the uniform dress code protocol for online classes. Parents are also strongly urged to dress appropriately while they supervise the online engagements. This follows the report of a viral video of an adult being completely exposed during an online teaching learning session with young students. At the recent parent information session held on the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information social media platforms, the Regional Director for Region 7 in Clarendon, Barrington Richardson, had outlined that some schools have made the wearing of uniform during virtual learning mandatory. In agreement, the Chief Executive Officer of the NPSC, Kesia Carr, expressed that parents should consider that schooling is not limited to one space. The National Parenting Support Commission urges all parents to comply with these instructions in keeping with the policy under the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. This, the ministry said, is to ensure uniformity across all school administrations in facilitating online classes and to protect the nation's children as they engage in the learning experience. 2 suspected goat thieves were caught with 13 goats with the help of the residents of Old Pira district in St. Thomas yesterday. Reports are that about 11 a.m. residents alerted the police about 3 men who were driving a motor car with stolen goats on board. Residents intercepted the vehicle and mobbed the men aboard. On the arrival of the lawmen, a man was seen with chop wounds to the body and the goats aboard the vehicle. The 2 other men escaped. The goats were recovered and the wounded man taken to the hospital where he is being treated. Subsequently, another man who was also wounded showed up at the hospital for treatment. He was placed under police guard with the other man. The men arrested remain in police custody while the search for the other suspect continues. The Alice police are urging residents who had their goats stolen recently to contact them at 876-982-5075 or the Morant Bay Police at 876-982-1027. The Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, has closed building sites in the corporate area due to building breaches. KSAMC City Engineer Xavier Chevans explained that several stop work notices have been issued in the past weeks.
Where we're looking at the monitoring of building construction activities across the corporate area. So we, from time to time during the construction progress, we deem it prudent to at various phases of the construction to come and look at the progress and ensure that these buildings are being built according to what was approved. Within the past 3 weeks alone, we have issued approximately 6 stop work notice for various breaches as it regards to the conditions of approval and the building approval itself. Building contrary to what was approved is a breach in the Building Act, and so when we discover this, we would have issued a cease work notice or a stop notice. So after the issuance of the stop notice, the developer or the applicant has 2 options: either to modify the breaches in the form of an amendment or revert back to what was originally approved.
What are some of the breaches that you would have noticed with some of these buildings?
Mr. Chevans further expressed that it is not the desire of the KSAMC to stop the building sites. However, when there is a non-compliance, action is taken.
Yes, the building in the foreground, a stop notice was issued sometime last week for a breach of inclusion of partition. And this is part of our drive also, that when we issue stop notice, we ensure that the developers are complying with these stop notices. It is not the action of the KSAC to stop development. However, when we cite breaches, we must hold the developers accountable. So I'm appealing to all developers, stick to what is approved, and if you have changes, please go through the proper process to have those changes remedied before you continue on the construction progress.
And those were the stories making news. I'll return with a recap. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.